Good afternoon, everyone. I realize it's pretty late in the afternoon. So maybe, I guess, can we start right at the back end with a quick round of introductions before we get on to the topic?
It's working. Hi, everyone. My name is Henry. I work for Visa, and my role in Visa is looking at how we deepen our partnerships with mobile money operators across Africa. So I lead that engagements across different areas, whether we're looking at consumers and whether we're looking at businesses. So happy to be here.
Hi everybody, my name is Hamish Houston. I'm along with my co-founder Hani, who's sitting in the front row, the founder of a business called Enza, not to be confused with Enza Capital, who are also walking around here. I think it's polite to say that we're veterans of the payment industry, which is another way of saying that we're old. Having worked in payments for about 20 years, traditionally from the card payments background, but now we're focused on serving some of the problems specifically for banks and fintechs in the acceptance space in Africa.
And good afternoon, everybody. I am Nikolai, and I'm the CEO of PowerPay. And PowerPay is a mobile money specialist. We help global and Pan-African companies connect to Africa and connect to the mobile money ecosystem.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Niva Musioka, and I'm the Senior Market Engagement Manager within the GSMA's Mobile Money Program, where I work with mobile operators, finance service providers, and regulators across Africa to increase adoption of mobile money within Africa. And also our work focuses on researching industry trends, providing insights, and fostering partnerships that drive financial inclusion, and particularly for underserved communities. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Akshay Grover. I recently founded a firm called Amadi. We focus on advisory, venture investing, and special situations. In case you're wondering why the hell am I moderating this panel, it's partly because of my history in fintech, I was running a fintech business in Africa called Cellulent. And so fintech is a bit close to my heart. But diving into the topic, I guess, Nieba, first question to you. There's a lot going on from a GSM perspective. It'll be great to understand, what do you think about, how do people see a GSMA, Momo, mobile payments in Africa evolving over the next couple of years? Anything that you guys see as key trends or key areas where Momo payments or payments via Momo would change from an Africa perspective?
Thanks for that, Akshay. So mobile money has evolved, from the initial use case of person-to-person transactions. And today we are witnessing several key trends that will shape the future of mobile money. And some of the trends that we are seeing are, for example, interoperability and cross-border payments, where as we continue to see mobile money being embedded into our daily lives, then there's increased push for interoperability between mobile money wallets and integration with traditional banking systems. This is particularly evident in East Africa, where we're seeing cross-border payments becoming more seamless, thereby reducing the costs and the time it takes for payments and also to do remittances. Another trend that we're witnessing is the use of data-driven insights, where mobile money providers are using data analytics to better understand the behavior of their customers, their usage patterns, so that they are able to tailor-make services that are best suited for the diverse needs of their customer segments. Also, another trend we're seeing is expansion into adjacent services, where mobile money providers are now offering a wider range of mobile money services, and we see introduction of services like savings, digital credit, insurance, and many operators also are pushing towards expanding the merchant payments ecosystem. So these adjacent services are critical when it comes to deepening financial inclusion and also addressing the diverse needs of various customers.
Fantastic. I mean, I guess, and maybe from here I'll jump on to interoperability because that's the key word. There have been a lot of announcements by mobile operators in the last few months around saying we'll become interoperable. Now, the history of telecom operators, pardon me saying so, is that they're not very good at cooperation. They are generally wary of cooperation. It took 20 years for the telecom tower industry to get set up, and it's still, one would argue that despite the benefits which are obvious, they haven't really bitten the bullet the way they should have. What's your view from an M-Pesa perspective on interoperability? Where does it stand today? And what do you see are the challenges from an interoperability point of view?
Thanks, Akshay.
And maybe a quick introduction as well, since we missed you there at the start.
Yeah, thanks, Akshay. So my name is Jason Masai. I head digital products at M-Pesa Africa. So M-Pesa Africa is a joint venture between Safaricom PLC and Vodacom Group. And we basically help scale M-Pesa across the continent. Back to your question, Akshay, on interoperability. So our purpose is basically to transform lives. And the beauty about interoperability is it basically removes friction for customers who are underserved, who do not have access to financial services, to be able to access that at a greater level. And I think one of the benefits of interoperability is it continues to make mobile money to be more ubiquitous. And I think that's a big plus, from where we stand. In terms of just helping for us, even as M-Pesa, to be able to increase our customer base from the 60 million customers that we serve across the continent in 8 markets. Secondly, if you look at a case study like Tanzania, where interoperability has worked really well. Initially, telcos, mobile money operators, getting into bilateral engagements to be able to allow flow of transactions and flow of value between their ecosystems, which has worked really well. And then over and above that, regulation has really come on board to be able to further reinforce that element of interoperability. So the benefits, I think, as you said, they are quite obvious in terms of increasing innovation across the ecosystem, enabling access for services across customers, regardless of the organization or the telco, the mobile operator. And I think that can only be a welcome move from where we stand, to be able to grow the pie, as we say, to be able to just increase financial access and financial inclusion.
Henry, Visa has also been involved in this process of cross-border money transfer between mobile operators. What do you see as Visa's role in this entire ecosystem, and how are you envisioning the partnership with mobile network operators or mobile payment operators in this space?
Thanks for that. So I would start, I think, from the top of what Visa we have been doing for quite a while. I think 60-year-old fintech company. So one of the things we are keen on is about collaboration. We know there's space for competition, but there's space for collaboration. And one of the things we do across card schemes is thinking about what are the standards that will actually drive collaboration. If we think about things like standards of cards, where we call it EMVCO, and that's what we really stand for. What are the standards that will drive cooperation and collaboration? So in this case, for mobile money, we have been, partnering with seemingly competitors, because when we started, this conversation, like with Jason here in Safaricom, you'd think that it would be like competition between Visa and a mobile money. But then we have looked at what are the synergies that this partnership could bring. And one of it is about how do we open up their ecosystem to the world. So that's where interoperability comes. How do we open up ecosystems such as the mobile money, which are prevalent in the domestic space? How do we open up to the world? And that is about harmonized regulations. We have worked with the likes even of the regulators to look at QR codes that are harmonized. We have worked at looking at how do we interconnect these different players, and so whether it's giving them a virtual card, like what we have done with Safaricom, give them a virtual card that allows their consumers to transact outside. And it's not just Safaricom or Vodacom group, but it's also about other telcos, within markets. So we look at how do we expand their, ecosystem. Yes, they are very, dominant in the market in terms of what they provide, and they're very niche, which is why they have gotten traction. But then how do we bring that to the global level? So we have spearheaded harmonized regulation as one thing. We have looked at unified platforms. So we have a system we call VisaNet, which really connects everyone else. So that's a platform that serves the same kind of interoperability. And then we look at how do we also ensure that customers knows the right experience they can expect. So also harmonizing the user experience.
So now maybe I'll now move to the fintech sitting right in the middle. I'm sure you're itching by now, but one of the challenges I always had when I was in the fintech chair was that every mobile operator on the continent is almost operating on its own operating system. Yeah. I mean, MTN Ghana is different from MTN Nigeria, is different from, every other country. So, these mobile operators have not achieved harmonization even in their own systems. Interoperability as a second, that's the second stage, which is after I move from within the same company, I don't have the same system. So how do you create interoperability? How do you guys, and maybe I'd like to hear from both PowerPay as well as Enza, with Enza, in terms of saying, how do you see that, and what is the role that you see fintechs therefore playing to be able to, in the short to medium term, even addressing this problem statement?
I think you've just hit the nail right on the thumb, right? That's exactly the point. That's the big opportunity, and I think Nikolai might be better placed to talk about the details. But from our perspective, where we're working across Africa with banks and financial institutions, the way I typically see it is there's mobile money versus traditional financial services was seen as a us versus them, or this versus that, and then there became a stage which is probably where we're at the moment, which is us and them, right? So it's the companion cards, it's wallets that sit alongside. It's but fundamentally, and no offense to the schemes, but it doesn't solve the root problem, which is the utility of mobile money in a broader network than just on their own network. So the most important thing that's going to happen in the next few years is that meshing of all those ecosystems, and it's not just true of mobile money, it's true of the rising domestic schemes in Africa, Verve, Misa, all of these rising platforms. Those will have to become interoperable, and that fabric has to be laid. And from whether you're a mobile network provider providing mobile money, or if you're a bank or a fintech, a Flutterwave who's accepting payments, you're going to have to support that ubiquity of payments. And that's where the interesting stuff about the guys who are creating, well, you did at Cellulant and other organizations as well, is bringing those pieces of string together. It's very, very important.
What do you think, Nikolai?
Yeah. So first of all, our type of business thrives in fragmentation, right? Like our business model is when the market is really complicated, we go out and we solve that complication for merchants who want to have easy access. So in some respects, proliferation of interoperability.
You love this. Let it continue for some more time.
I mean, in some respects, the proliferation of interoperability is kind of, at some level, is actually bad for our business. That being said, it's very obvious that, of course, it's inevitable, and it's by far the best route for the consumer to take. There are, I mean, we've seen one of the reasons for interoperability being very slow at being rolled out is there's a kind of clash between the commercial interests of the guys rolling out the networks and the interest of the regulators. Rolling out mobile money infrastructure is extremely expensive. You pump hundreds of millions of dollars into CapEx to building agent networks across the countries and marketing. So, I mean, Safaricom excelled at this, so you can convince everyone that the digits on your phone are as good as the cash in your hand. And obviously, if I'm going to go out and I'm going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars and build this entire network and create all this infrastructure that's very costly on the ground, and someone comes in and is regulated to be allowed to use my network for free, that creates a really bad incentive for the financial drivers behind the proliferation of mobile money, because at the end of the day, that will only proliferate if there is very strong commercial interests behind building those networks. I mean, these things, they are unfortunately very, very expensive.
So are we saying then that, you know, of course, you know, given the historical legacy infrastructure which has been invested into by the mobile operators, I guess where do things go from here? Because if anything, and if I were to crystal gaze next 3 years and say, hey, you know, mobile operators are going to be interoperable, yeah? Do you believe that that makes life even more difficult for the fintechs to thrive and to build a business? Or does the fact that the mobile operators remain in a way fragmented as you're describing, beneficial for fintechs? And I guess very close to that same question is the question of what should be the role of the regulator / the central government. I mean, like the government in terms of maintaining a switching network. I mean, today in Nigeria you have NIBS, in Ghana you have GIBS coming up, it's working reasonably well. And should the burden central standards sit over there so that it's fair play? I'd like to get a response from GSMA as well as from M-Pesa before we come back to the fintechs. Yeah.
So from where we sit, we feel that the role for the regulators is to provide an enabling environment where, you know, that promotes innovation of products and services, and also while ensuring that there is consumer protection, and also just simplifying the regulatory requirements for mobile money operators, and also ensuring that there is consistent policies across regions can drive mobile money adoption. And obviously, where we sit at GSMA, then we would come in to support the mobile money providers in terms of engaging in dialogue with the regulators in situations where that is not forthcoming.
Jason, what are your thoughts?
From an M-Pesa perspective, I think regulators are a key stakeholder in this conversation. And for us, I think the question is, how do we better collaborate with the regulators to be able to bring forth innovation that we actually sort of like preparing, or what we see that, you know, as we solve problems, as we bring this innovation, how do we better collaborate with regulators to be able to land this innovation in a way that is seamless, alluding to her comment in terms of just providing an enabling regulatory environment that can allow innovation to thrive. And then secondly, I think with emerging technologies, I think mobile money is one. You have crypto, you have, you know, very different emerging technologies coming on board. I think the question is, how do regulators also provide a level playing field to enable first consumer protection, which is very, very critical. And then from a macro level, you know, obviously they do have a fiduciary responsibility to be able to sort of prevent AML, terrorist financing, and so on and so forth. So from where we sit, I think the question is, how do we partner better with regulators even as new and emerging technologies come to the fore, to be able to just provide a level playing field, an enabling environment that can allow innovation to thrive.
What do you think, Hamish and Nikolai?
I think it's, the same conversation could also happen about other emergent payment technologies, real-time payments. It's the same conversation, right? It's about the fact that, the one thing I was going to say is it's not just the fact that internally within big MNOs, they may not be interoperable, but it's also the fact that the commercial model that underpins those mobile money businesses are dramatically different in terms of like who's paying for the transaction, and in market by vendor. And so, what we've seen work, two good examples of real-time payments is UPI in India and PIX in Brazil, where pretty much it was regulated and mandated. And I personally, I know it's not a popular position to take, but I think regulators have a very, very important role to play in setting up this national infrastructure that should be the fabric of a payment system. As I say, that extends beyond mobile money.
Who do you think, different point which kind of got lost. So do you think it's advantageous, Nikolai, that operators collaborate for fintechs, or it's a disadvantage?
Is it what, sorry? I didn't.
Is it an advantage or a disadvantage for fintechs that the mobile operators start allowing interoperability and better collaboration?
I mean, look, I think it can be a tremendous opportunity. Obviously, the more useful the whole payments infrastructure, mobile money, crypto, banking, rails, the more useful, the more frictionless it is for the end consumer, the more the entire pie will grow and the more opportunities there will be for entrepreneurs and businesses across the continent to flourish across all the sectors. So with that, some businesses will die and some businesses will thrive, but overall it will lead to a much more vibrant payments infrastructure. So it's obviously something that's very good for the continent.
We are running out of time. Henry, any concluding thoughts on the topic?
I think from my side, what I would say, everyone has a place to play, and I think that's what we all at the end of the day see is what is the value you bring to the ecosystem, and I think that then would guide what kind of collaboration is to be there. It will guide what kind of openness, because when you talk about mobile money and being interoperability, I think you're talking about the topic of openness, you're talking about the topic of open API, open banking, and what place will the fintech play in terms of, are they then offering the user experience that would then be driving this? So I would say everyone has a place to play, and so this is a place where we collaborate in terms of interoperability.
Fantastic. So the game is collaboration. The game you still believe is working together between fintechs, mobile operators, whoever has whatever value, let them bring that to the table and maximize value for the end consumer. That's a great note to probably close down the conversation. But I think before we do that, want to give an opportunity to any of the any people in the room who have any questions to any of the panelists. This would be a good time to take it. Okay. So thank you very much, panelists. Appreciate you all taking the time over here today. Thank you, Africa FinTech Summit, for organizing this. And let's continue the conversation over the breaks.